Hi. The sound of an ambulance siren always gives me the goosebumps. Why does the driver have to make it whine like that? Do you know? Right, an ambulance must get to the hospital in a hurry. Of course, not everyone goes to the hospital in an ambulance. Usually just emergency cases. People who weren't planning to go right away arrive in an ambulance. Most people know ahead of time that they're going to the hospital, so they just pack a bag and walk in the door. Why do people go to the hospital anyway? Nobody wants to go, but if something goes wrong, something happens inside your body machine that your doctor can't take care of in his office, or if you get hurt in an accident, the hospital is the place to go to get fixed up. Have you ever been to the hospital? Maybe you had your tonsils out and stayed overnight? Or did you have your appendix out and have to stay quite a few days? If you've never been to the hospital, the first time can be a scary experience, but it can be exciting too. And that's the way Jonna Eller felt when Dr. Watts told her that she would have to go to the hospital to have an operation on her knee. A little bit frightened and excited too. There are big hospitals and little hospitals. Children's Hospital in Boston, the hospital Jonna Eller went to, is a big hospital. It looks big on the outside, and it looks big on the inside, too. Jonna and her mother walked down a long corridor before they came to the reception desk and found somebody waiting to help them. "Hello, Jonna," the lady said. "We were expecting you." I guess you know from the name of the hospital that all the patients there are children. And everybody there, like the woman who signed Jonna in, is there for one reason: to help children who have problems get well quickly and go home again. Jonna told the woman her name and answered all the questions she asked her. Mrs. Eller helped with anything Jonna didn't know or couldn't remember. Jonna was feeling better. The butterflies that had been fluttering around in her stomach all morning weren't fluttering anymore. Like all patients entering a hospital, Jonna was given an arm bracelet with her name and hospital number on it. She was pleased with her hospital bracelet. Now she was really a patient. Then Jonna was sent into the waiting room to wait until her room was ready. And the waiting room in a children's hospital is a very interesting place. 2 children were drawing pictures at one of the tables while they waited. And who was sitting with them? The biggest stuffed dog Jonna had ever seen. But that wasn't all. There was a hobby horse. Giddy-ap! This is wonderful. Maybe those butterflies are gone for good. What happened next? Well, that box may not look like the thermometers you've seen, but Jonna had her temperature taken. You know, there are lots of people at the hospital all the time, just waiting to take care of the children who come in. And who's the most important person in the hospital? The patient. You, if you're the patient. And that's the way the people Jonna met treated her. They made her feel like someone special. So did the next person she went to meet, the lab technician. Lab technicians in the hospital do many important things. One thing they do is check the patient's blood to find out if it's healthy. They do tests on it to find out the number of red cells and white cells in it and other things like that. In order to do this, first they must get a sample of the patient's blood. The laboratory technician who took a sample of Jana's blood was so friendly and pleasant that Jana didn't mind too much, although it did hurt a little. She wrapped a piece of tubing around Jana's arm, wiped a spot clean with antiseptic, inserted a needle, and drew off some of Jana's blood. Yipes! Jana felt better when that was over. After that, she pinned a medal on Jana for being so brave. But Jana didn't feel so brave a little later, lying in her hospital bed, wearing a hospital Johnny. She was glad her mother was there to comfort her and talk to her. But soon it was lunchtime, and Jana felt better. She ate nearly everything on her plate and drank her milk, too. The table Jana ate her lunch off of was neat. It fit right over her bed. And after the nurse's aide took her tray away, Jana used the table to play a game with her mother. The next person Jana had to see was the most important of all, her doctor, Dr. Watts. Jana was glad to see him. He was glad to see her, too. He asked her lots of questions while he looked at her knee. Does it hurt here? Or here? Or here? Okay, he said, and sent Jana off in a go-kart to have her knee x-rayed. How many of you have ever been x-rayed? Even if you haven't, you know what x-rays are for, don't you? You know that doctors use x-rays to take pictures of the inside of your body to find out if anything is wrong. Would you be afraid to have an x-ray? Do you think Jana was afraid? She was a little bit afraid, but she didn't have to be, because the x-ray she had didn't hurt at all. Jana thought the x-ray technician was very pretty. She watched her pull the big camera down close to the table where she was lying. When the camera was right over Jana's knee, the x-ray technician put out all the lights and took the x-ray picture. Jana didn't move a muscle. The next morning, Jana was given some medicine to make her sleepy, wheeled on a traveling stretcher to the operating room, and then... Oh my. Well, it wasn't over quite that fast. But before she knew it, Jana was back in her room with her leg in a big fat cast. She felt kind of woozy and sleepy, but she was okay. For the rest of the day, Jana had to lie very still. She was too sleepy to sit up and eat from a tray, so she had to be fed through her blood vessels like this. The board-like thing kept her from moving her hand by mistake and pulling out the tube. It was awkward, but no, it didn't hurt. When she felt wide awake again, she was glad to see her mother sitting there beside her. Dr. Watts came to visit her and asked how she was feeling. And of course, there were nurses and nurses' aides whooshing in and out all the time. No one leaves the hospital right after an operation, and neither did Jonna. She spent lots of time in the playroom, painting and just resting. Other kids who had been there before her had decorated the playroom with lots of interesting pictures and things. Finally came the magic day when Jonna could go home. So Jonna's mother packed her suitcase for her, and Jonna walked out of the hospital on her crutches. Jonna Eller didn't have to walk with crutches for very long. Now she runs and plays without any crutches at all, and without any pain in her knee. And when she thinks of Children's Hospital and all the wonderful people there, she says, if you have to go to the hospital, don't be afraid. A hospital isn't a bad place at all. It's a good place to go to get well. I agree.
All About You is a project of the Agency for Instructional Television.